Well, with Socrates today. Okay, so our last day is the 12th. So I think I'm just going to have to combine some questions about the reading into the last test. Okay. And then just give you enough time to read. I thought we had, but I'm thinking about last year. Sodium fluoride, is that dangerous? Let's put this up here.
I'll be not. Yeah, we haven't been there since I took German.
So I'm totally contaminated now. It's like I've been living in Pitcher, Oklahoma this whole time. Oh, that'd be a good field trip right there. What's that? Yeah, there's some things, I want you to come back with your own kids and see some things that are consistent. He's watching you more than both races. All right. I think at the time that he was a junior student, I put that up there. It had more weight to it. All right, last thing we're going to talk about Socrates is I told you to do some more Socratic things. This is Socratic ethics. And this we'll kind of blend this together a little bit with how he kind of came to his decision to not escape from jail and not run away as he easily could have done. So there are three areas that Socrates focuses on here when it comes to his moral philosophy or ethics here. And one is the nature of human happiness. Human happiness. There's three things he focuses on. So yeah, what makes us happy? What pushes us more towards happiness as opposed to the opposite direction? And then the effect of virtuous versus vicious, V-I-C-I. That look right? Vicious. One of those words. It's kind of actions. If we act virtuously, what happens? If we act viciously, what happens then to us? In fact, and more specifically, effect of virtuous versus vicious. Virtuous versus vicious. Everyone say it together. Virtuous versus vicious. Virtuous, vicious. I can't do it. Virtuous versus vicious actions on our soul. How does it affect our soul? That's the most important thing, remember? And then the last thing is kind of a question, is it possible to act contrary to what we know to be good? When Socrates says know, K-N-O-W, he means absolute kind of knowledge. So if you knew something absolutely, are you able to act contrary to what you know is good? I'll put good in quotes, I guess, because it would be any positive virtue. Could you act contrary to what you know is just? Could you act contrary to what you know is pious? So I'll just use the word good to catch all those things. Is it possible to act contrary to what we know? Don't forget what know means to him. Know to be good. Question mark. All right. Yeah. So he starts out this first part here, number one, about human happiness. He believes that all human action is taken with the purpose of bringing yourself some level of happiness. Everything that you do in order to move yourself towards some level of happiness. Now, when I say happiness, I don't mean, smiles and joy and holding hands and singing together and all that. I don't mean like that. It could be even moving towards something that will bring you less. But your parents wanted you to come here, so you're here. And you kind of I guess you could have ran away. I don't know. You could have moved in with an uncle or aunt. I don't know. But you're here because maybe you want to be here, but also maybe because your parents want it. And the grief of having to deal with your parents on and on and on for the next several years, telling you should have gone to Castro Hall. It's just not worth it. So you just kind of give into it and you come here anyway. So maybe it doesn't make you necessarily happy, but it's better than the alternative. Yeah. Good example? I don't know. This idea in philosophy is this idea of the end of all the ultimate end to all human action being the pursuit of happiness is called eudaimonism. Eudai being one of the words for happiness, and monism we know, right? That it all comes down to one thing, remember? So it all comes down to happiness, right? Everything we do, we're driven by this. And this is really a human emotion, or not human emotion, a human force, something within us that drives us towards always seeking out happiness. And this is an important part of this whole theory here, or this whole idea, is that, in fact, it's kind of the motor that drives us, all of this, is that we're driven to be happy. And that could be short-term or long-term happiness. You may be things that are foolish, but they gave you quite a thrill. Like when you want to drive 90 down Utica here between 21st and 31st with your top down in the convertible. It might be fun, right? Music blaring. It might give you a real rush. But you might get a hefty ticket, or you might get your car towed, or you may get thrown in jail, or I don't know where you are with your points and everything. Right? But you may, at least your parents will take your car away. So it's all just, why did you do it? Well, you thought it'd make you happy, and for a while it did. Yeah? For a while it was quite a thrill. People, jump off tall buildings and stone structures and stuff with a bungee cord attached to their ankle. And that just, or jump out of perfectly good planes with parachutes on, right, with competent pilots still alive at the wheel and everything, to me, but okay, and you keep doing that, William, until you don't anymore, or until you can't, right? Because the last time you do it, maybe it's the last time, yeah, right? So, but it gives you a thrill. And we can even, those are extreme, of course, examples, but I think the more mundane examples prove themselves if you think about it. But even if we go to we look at somebody who's not mentally completely stable, and if they're if I'm, in a holding cell, in a mental institution, and or somebody, not me, of course, right? Somebody else, some unknown, yes, somebody else that looks a lot like me. But no, I want to back off that because I was going to say this kind of morbid, but the person that's there, in the cell, they're being watched and everything, and but they're locked in there, but they, at lunch, they stole a butter knife, from the kitchen, and they slashed their wrists or something, right? And they start bleeding all over this clean cell, What happens, Why? How does that show up here? Is there anything that this person's doing that's going to bring them some level of happiness in their mind? I mean, of course, we can only make the decision with the mind that we have, right? What would it be? What kind of happiness would it bring this person? Or what, at least, I'm not saying that it would, but what do they think it would be like? Say again?
This person
Okay. All right, okay. Were you gonna say something, Nick? Yes, it's hard to figure them out. I'm thankful that all of you are having a hard time answering this question. That it's kind of hard to put your mind in that person's mind. I will say that at least all the insane asylums that I've been in, the ones that I've been to, if something like this ever happens, it's not like the nurses just come to the little, porthole window and like look in and just go, oh man, that's going to be a real mess to clean that up. That's not what they do. What do? They bust the door down, right? I mean, and you got doctors and nurses on there, they're going to get you fixed up. And then do you think they just like keep it a secret? No, they call your family. You get extra visits to the psychiatrist. Who knows? I mean, you get all kinds of attention. I mean, if that's at least, right? If you at least get some people worry about you. Pity's very underrated, by the way, I feel like. I don't know if you guys know that or not. Pity's very underrated. I feel like we should all really accept pity when it's given to us and really just milk it for all it's worth in that moment. That's not philosophy, really, but it kind of is. So even in a situation with somebody, again, who's not mentally stable or well-balanced, even they, in doing what they do this for, Will, you may be right, maybe for some type of displacement of pain, to take the pain they're feeling emotionally, right? Is that what you're saying? And then the physical pain is...
If you're like really depressed and then now you have this overwhelming physical pain and you don't think about the depression.
Okay, right. So it's like having a headache and stubbing your toe on purpose to, Okay. Well, not quite as deadly, okay. Both those, depression and the other one are pretty deadly. So displacing pain. And I wonder though, and even in an unstable mind, the decision may be made, of course, and maybe you all know people who've unfortunately gone down this path, that the idea of dying seems to be a better choice, a happier choice than what the situation that they're dealing with. And that's a sad situation, but something that unfortunately happens every day, and very sad. We've had a couple of suicides here at school since I've been teaching here, a few, and it's one thing if a student that you know or a friend that you know dies in a car accident or a disease or something. We kind of all, it's horrible, but when it's a suicide, it's really something. Makes the whole everything just kind of, I don't know. Really start questioning, what did I not see? What did I miss? Surely I was around this person all the time. Like, how did I not know? Anyway. All right, sorry, I didn't even take things down so much. I like to keep it a little lighter. But, all right. So even in that situation, somebody's trying at least to move themselves towards happiness, although it may be misguided, it may be foolish, driving down Utica that fast, or doing something self-destructive or maybe just a move away from more grief, at least less grief the way you're going to go. Then all those things then play into this idea of eudaimonism. So we want to move towards happiness, and we're driven then to do that. Let me back up here a little bit. Let's see here. I feel like I talked about this, but I don't miss anything. Yes, okay. Yeah. And so since we want to move towards happiness, we're already doing all these things that we feel like are going to bring us happiness. We think they're going to bring us happiness. Whether we know they're going to bring us happiness or not, that's probably not the case always, but we're doing that. But Socrates tells us, in a really kind of uncharacteristic way for him, that the way to happiness is to have a healthy, these are his words, and flourishing soul. So in his defense and apology, when he talks about the greatest good of man is the daily converse about virtue and the improvement of one's soul. This is where he's going with all this. So, and when I say it's uncharacteristic, I mean he doesn't usually be like, well, what do you mean by healthy and flourishing? Or what is healthy and flourishing? And he's going to get into all that. And he kind of just makes this a bit of a thing that you should just accept that this is what you want to have in order to reach happiness. Real happiness is to make your soul healthy and flourishing. So that's as we move on to number 2, is gets to talk about the soul. So he says when we act in a vicious way, in a vicious way, acting viciously actually damages our soul. It hurts our soul. It doesn't hurt the soul of the person you inflict this viciousness upon. Actually, he says it only affects them physically if you do that. I don't know if he means like physically or like emotionally physically takes a toll on them. Maybe that's effect, but it only hurts them physically. But you, it's much more damage. That physical stuff that can heal, but it hurts your soul. It moves you in the wrong direction. If the goal is to get here, then acting viciously is moving you in the wrong direction. Acting virtuously, though, improves the soul, elevates the soul, and moves the soul towards being healthy and flourishing. So our virtuous actions are what bring us closer to happiness. Sometimes, though, acting viciously might seem like the way that might make you happy. Maybe. And sometimes, though, you may just misjudge what you should do, and you act viciously, but not intentionally. You act viciously out of ignorance, though, because you don't know. You don't know which way you should go. You make as good a guess as you can, but out of ignorance, though, because you don't have this kind of absolute understanding of things, you act viciously, but not with malice, though. You're just making a mistake. You shouldn't have done that. Maybe you know that later, maybe you don't. But we should all be striving to act virtuously at all times in order to bring ourselves closer to happiness. I should say, bring us closer to a healthy, flourishing soul, which brings us to happiness. Okay, so how can we know which actions are virtuous and which ones are vicious? By finding out what virtuous means, what virtue is. That's how we'll know. That's how we'll know. So, and until we figure that out, we'll continue to err on the side at times, of acting viciously and moving ourselves away from this goal of happiness that we have. That's a natural goal. So, eudaimonism, abbreviated here, requires healthy and healthy, flourishing soul, blah, 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 blah. And then we have, we must act virtuously. And once we do that, once we consistently do that, because when we knew what virtuous actions were, then now we can keep doing that, then that leads us to happiness. Right? We desire happiness. We're just going about it the wrong way. Sometimes you get lucky and you make the right choice. But as long as we don't know, ignorance is the problem. In fact, I mentioned this book, The Republic, yesterday, I think. The last line of The Republic is, well, I think it is the last, but it's in the last paragraph. Ignorance is the only sin. Because it's knowledge that enlightens us. It's knowledge that, and once we have that absolute kind of knowledge, then we're operating on a different level then. And that leads us to this third part here. Is it possible to act contrary to what we know to be good? Well, if eudaimonism is correct, that's our desire, and if we accept this idea, then the answer is no to this question. If we knew absolutely what that means, or what piety is, or what all these other virtues I mentioned over and over again, we will always act in accordance with the good, because will be compelled by our eudaimonism to bring about this kind of soul. And so acting in accordance with the good, let's say virtuously, something we'll always do. In fact, we really can't do anything else. So absolute knowledge of the good, we'll say, of goodness, of all the positive virtues, will compel us to always act in accordance with that goodness. In fact, we almost have no choice at that point. We're going to always move. And what kind of governs us not having any choice? This desire for happiness that we all have. And if we know that that's the way to go, we're going to always move in that direction. Tell me if anyone doesn't understand that. I'd like to understand this concept. And if you don't understand, it's okay. It's maybe one of the more complicated concepts. But everyone, I wish I could make like a formula for this or something. Like a flow chart or something. That's a lame attempt there off the top of my head. Yeah, X equals happiness. X plus this. I don't know. Think about it, guys, really. Got to be some logical type of formal logic formula for all this. Okay, but I'd like to have like all those cool symbols though, like this stuff and like that Greek E or whatever. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? Make it really complicated looking. And no numbers, just letters, because I don't know how you guys do that math with letters. Is it coded? I've tested already. We've been over this time. All right. Okay, so just one more time. We all want to be happy. In order to be happy, we have to have a healthy, flourishing soul. And the way to get a healthy, flourishing soul is act virtuously. But why do I keep making the wrong decisions and acting out of accordance? Because I don't know. I'm ignorant about it. If we can know, then knowing will move us towards happiness, ultimately towards happiness. So I can just tell you, there's a lot of questions in the test about that. All right, so just about what does Socrates ultimately think all the stuff that he does will bring him? What is it? Happiness. So why not? So there's something self-serving about what Socrates does now. He talks about he mentions the fact that it's what we should do to elevate the soul and all, but it's not just a quest about Apollo and his religious fervor or anything like that, or trying to prove to God. But there's also self-serving, might not be the right word, but something that's going to help him. There's something in it for him as well, personally. And it's not just knowledge of the gods or what they mean, but it's that for him, he believes that knowledge leads to happiness. Having knowledge compels us to always act virtuously, and doing so always moves us towards happiness. Okay. So all this discussion, all these Socratic dialogues and all that, where he's discussing these topics, are ultimately a quest for happiness. Good. Any questions? No? Okay. Well, let's talk about his friend Plato. Plato. Friend and student. I don't know if you remember this, but Plato's present obviously he's present at the trial. There's an account of it. Plato's kind of humble in a way. He doesn't, I think he only mentions himself twice in all the dialogues and things that he wrote, as a dialogue or as a discussion. He only mentions himself 2 times that I know of. Once in Apology and then once in another dialogue where he's present there. And he mentions that he's there. I don't remember if at his death, although he was there, that he mentioned being there. So it's kind of humble in that way. But one thing about Plato is that he didn't understand that his writings would one day be as revered as anything Socrates had to say. And he becomes a philosopher in his own right, and of course always linked with Socrates being his teacher and mentor. But what we see then in a lot of the Socratic dialogues is, as scholars take a look at what's happening over here and what Plato wrote on his own, we see him like inserting his own philosophy into Socrates' mouth, because he writes, like Socrates, and then someone says something else, and then Socrates says, Socrates down here says, and scholars say, well, that's Socrates, this is Socrates, but this is Plato. Yeah, so he kind of uses Socrates as a mouthpiece to get his, because he didn't think people would like be reading his things, reading his philosophy, a couple thousand years from now. But it would be kind of hard to believe, right? Who believes that? Who believes something you're going to write and be written, going to be read all this time later? Okay, so that's actually one of the problems, I guess, again, with the studying Socrates is parsing out what parts of what he's saying are Platonic and which are actually from him. Yeah, and that's easy to find out. I mentioned already Plato, of course, important and student and follower of Socrates. Very powerful thinker again on his own. There's a famous 20th century philosopher. He's from England. He actually has dual citizenship, British American. But his name is Alfred North Whitehead, professor and philosopher. And he has a quote, just to give you an idea of how Plato kind of ranks among philosophers in world history. He says that the history of philosophy is merely a series of footnotes to Plato. That's a huge compliment to Plato, but it also means that Plato's really talked about everything already. He's covered it all. And everything you read since Plato is just somebody rehashing or reworking the work Plato's already done, maybe looking at it differently, approaching it differently. But Plato's already covered this stuff. Maybe not, completely, maybe not exhaustively, but Plato's already been there. So everything you read about philosophy since Plato must have a footnote to Plato, because he's been there, done that. That's a nice, that gives you an idea of how he's thought of. He's the founder of what's considered to be the first university, but that's a bit stretching it a bit by our definition of university today. But the school that he founded in Athens is called the Academy. And it was a school, it was a location, it was an actual place. And the students came to him, like we do here. We gather in the same place together, as opposed to the sophistic way of teaching where the teachers would come to you, to your home. This was a location, brick and mortar store. There's only one degree, by the way, at the Academy. Anyone want to guess? Yes. Even today, right? Whenever if someone gets a doctoral degree, PhD, whatever, they're a doctor of philosophy. Even if their degree is in music or German, yeah, right? Doctor of philosophy. Yeah. We still talk about that, and still use that kind of what do we call that, nomenclature? Yeah, philosophy is it. And guess whose philosophy they're studying? Socrates, yeah. And a little bit of Plato. Guess who wrote all the books you got to buy for the class? Plato. Guess who you pay tuition to? It's a great deal. It's a great gig. I mean, and he's the gateway too. You got to go through him to get the diploma, I guess. It's not a bad situation you have there. Yeah, maybe you're writing a check, and then another check for the books, and you need to pay your tuition in full before I give you the degree.
How big is the graduating class?
I know.
Said one faculty.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was an auditorium class or something.
Like a little house.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you have like an amphitheater rented out or something. Yeah, I don't know how much is known about the actual. That's a good question. That's a good question. historians, I guess, of this. This is really in the Western world at least. I don't know about in the East, but this was the first time that there was actually a formal location that people came to and met the teacher there. And so it's, historically that's significant enough. But there's a certain intellectual incest here. Don't you think? I mean, is that the right word? All right, it's incestuous in an intellectual way. Not to use that same verbiage here, but this comes to mind about and I don't want to talk ill of that, and I'm not. I'm telling you the truth, okay? But we have Oral Roberts University here in Tulsa, and when Mr. Roberts, Pastor Roberts, was alive, President Roberts, Dr. Roberts, was alive. He did have a doctorate, and do you know what university it came from? It came from the academy. No. It came from ORU, right? So, and I don't know, and I'm not. This is not critical of the academics or anything like that. I know nothing about all that. But I don't know, and if you can think of one, please tell me. I don't know of another university in the country or anywhere where the founder names the university after himself while he's still alive. A lot of universities are named for people.
Did Brigham Young?
I think that came after he was passed. Yeah, I think so. But that's true. But that happened in the 80s, and he had long since opened the school. But I hear you. But you're right. If you have that kind of connection with the Almighty, then maybe that's. And he does claim that God told him to name it the university that. So, so that's it. Discussion closed, right? That's. But I don't know of any others. But anyway, so he does this. But what I wanted to say was I've always wanted to get a look at his. It's got to be somewhere, right? I mean, at his diploma for this, because it would say Oral Roberts University bestows upon Oral Roberts, and then signed by the president of the university. Now that's a bit incestuous, right? That's intellectual. Yeah. He did, and actually, we've had many teachers over the years that have been here, or students taught here that have come from ORU's education, and they've just been fantastic, just great. And we even had a campus minister for a long time here who had gone to ORU. He was Catholic guy, went to ORU. I don't know. I only know good things academically about what they're doing, but I'm just only criticizing this one little part.
All the people who did well there academically all left. They don't stay there.
Okay. All right. There might be, you might be able to make the same argument for other schools. Typically, if you're going to get a graduate degree, it's better that you get the graduate from a different college than what you went to undergrad at, because it broadens your horizons a little bit. That again, it's kind of incestuous, but when you have the same professors for undergrad that are guiding you through your master's and PhD, it's a little bit closed off to. So a lot of people will go they'll go to some small college or some state school, and then they'll go to, some better graduate school and maybe a different. I had a girlfriend. You don't want to hear this, do you?
I have to play.
Yeah. I mean, that's news right there. I had a girlfriend. Period. That's just a girlfriend who went to Kalamazoo College in Michigan. Yeah. Which is sorry.
Isn't that a line from Dr.
Kalamazoo, Michigan. It's actually a really good. They come here every once in a while. There's a poster down in the basement for them. It's a good liberal arts college, and but it's in Kalamazoo, Michigan, right? That's yeah. Or as they call it, Kazoo. And sorry.
Kalamazoo
is the name of the town? Yeah.
That sounds like a Dr. Seuss.
I realize it's a Native American word, I think.
It is a Dr. Seuss.
Okay. I didn't mean to go down this route. Did I tell you I had a girlfriend? Okay, I got that part. And she went to Kalamazoo College, and she went to.
Oh, the place you go.
They say Kalamazoo? Oh, that's a place you could go, right? Well, I went there one time, a couple
They're
times.
all made up except Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo's for real. Kalamazoo's for real, but it's hard to resist. If you're Dr. Seuss, it's hard to resist a word like Kalamazoo, I think. And then she went to like to, Cal Polytech for master's degree and then Stanford for a PhD. Yeah, I should have stayed with her, right? And she did all these biotech startups and made a bunch of money, and now she's like she's younger than I am now. She retired and she's like renovating a loft in San Francisco downtown or something. Yeah, come on, man. Just like it's like twist. I could have been the co-heir of the Black Forest IKEA fortune. The Academy, though in Athens. So yeah, one teacher, one writer for the books, and one person who used to write one check to one person. Yeah, he taught Socratic dialogues, of course, and that he had written. And let me see here. But in order to understand Socrates, I'm going to stop here because I'm going to say this and I'm going to back off and we'll pick it up on Thursday. But in order to understand Socrates, Plato, at least, sorry, not. This book I've mentioned twice already, The Republic, is really the key. And I'd be willing to bet, you can come back and tell me in 4 or 5 years, that you probably won't get through college without reading the book The Republic, or at least large portions of it. It covers such a broad spectrum of things, from even psychology into urban planning, even and military stuff, and security for a nation, and education. One of the big things talked about. It's really something. It's really and classes and this, what their kind of class structure is going to be, and it's really it's an imaginary. I mean, not imaginary discussion, but a discussion about an imaginary republic that never actually materializes in real life. But this idea of it, and in order to understand all that, and the whole part of this with Plato, there's an allegory in the Republic that Socrates tells, but it's actually Plato saying it. And it's called the Allegory of the Cave, and you may have read it or heard it before. But it's kind of the crux of the whole thing. It comes around the middle of the Republic, so it's. I sometimes when I've read, I feel like it comes a little bit late. Because it would have helped if I would have told me that earlier in the story, but I'm going to tell you now. So not right now, but I'll tell you on Thursday. Allegory of the Cave. Who's read it or heard of it before? Anyone? Allegory of the Cave. 2 people? What did can I ask you where? 3, 4?
One of the other classes I did here.
Okay.
Maybe St. Augustine's Confessions, maybe not.
Confessions of that would make sense.
Was it ethics?
What teacher?
Father
Stephen, yeah. It would make sense in a Augustine class too, because Augustine was a very Platonic thinker. So yeah. It could fit there too. All those things are mentioned, all those things are discussed. It's a really pretty comprehensive work. So sometimes in another class, you may, in another college class, they may ask you to read book 7 of the Republic, yeah? Not the whole thing. It can almost be used as a reference book for various topics like that. Kind of sociological things, really. And very, very practical things too. Okay, I'm going to stop there and we'll pick it up on Thursday. Enjoy your whatever you do on Wednesday. Yeah, I think I could get used to that.